After years of my family constantly putting me down, acting like I wasn't good enough for anything, I finally had enough and decided to just go my own way. Now, here they are, showing up at my doorstep, practically groveling for a second chance. Hey Reddit, I'm a 35-year-old woman, and I've been keeping this bottled up for ages. I honestly never thought I'd be the one posting a huge thing like this, but after what went down last weekend, I'm just completely lost. I figured I needed to get it all out somewhere, and maybe hear from folks who have gone through something kind of similar. So, yeah, this is gonna be a long one, so get comfortable. There's family drama, some seriously sneaky manipulation, lies, and let's just say, a whole heap of feeling entitled. So here's the deal. I grew up in a family where what other people thought was everything. My parents, especially my mom, Lucinda, were totally obsessed with how we looked from the outside. We weren't rich or anything, but we had to act like we were. Every family dinner was more like a show than actually eating. Smiling for the neighbors, matching outfits for Christmas, and always being told to sit up straight or wipe that frown off your face if you weren't grinning ear to ear. I've got two siblings, Elliot, who's 38, and Clara, who's 33. Elliot was like the golden child. Got into finance early, married a perfect woman, had two kids before he hit 30, and bought a house in the same town we all grew up in. My mom practically worshipped him. Clara was the family's wild child, but she was always charming, could always bounce back, and somehow got away with stuff I could never even dream of. And then there was me. I was always the oddball, the artistic type. Photography was my thing, and I juggled that with cafe jobs to pay my way through college. Then, I started my own little photography business, product shots, portraits, weddings, anything that paid the bills. I never asked mom and dad for a dime, never got into any trouble, but because I didn't fit their super strict idea of success, I was the family black sheep. Every family gathering felt like a job interview I was bombing. Lucinda, my mom, loved to ask, "So, when are you gonna stop playing games and get a real job?" She'd say it with a smile, but it wasn't a joke, you know? For ages, I tried so hard to win them over. I figured if I just reached a certain point, landed a big client, got a nicer place, a new car, then they'd finally respect me. But it never happened. Even when my business really started to take off, Lucinda would just wave it away like, "Oh, that's cute," as if it was just a little hobby that happened to pay some bills. The worst thing, I started believing them. I second-guessed everything I did. I wondered if I was just a total flake, a kid who'd never grow up. Then, 3 years ago, everything changed. I got this amazing opportunity to shoot a campaign for a sustainable skincare company. It wasn't a giant corporation, but the publicity was huge. One of my photos even made it into a national magazine. I was so excited. I showed my parents the magazine at a family dinner, beaming. It's etched in my memory how my mom squinted at a page and asked, "Is that your name way down there in small letters?" I was like, "Huh, I thought you took credit for it." Elliot just smirked. No one said anything remotely like "good job." I dipped out early that night and bawled my eyes out in my car for a good 45 minutes. That was the last time I went to a family dinner. It was also when I finally decided to really put some distance between us, this time for good. I started therapy. I poured myself into my business. I made friends who actually had my back. I bounced out of the city and into a little town where nobody knew me as Lucinda's daughter. And for the first time ever, I could finally breathe. I was out and about running errands when I got back to a phone that was just buzzing like crazy texts, missed calls, even a voicemail from a number I didn't know. I figured it had to be some work thing, so I listened to the voicemail first. It was Lucinda. Her voice was shaky. She said, "Please call me back. I know you don't want to, but this is important." There was something in her voice I couldn't quite put my finger on. It wasn't exactly sadness, more like desperation. I hesitated. I hadn't talked to her in almost 2 years. Then I glanced out the window. There, across the street, was a dark gray SUV that I knew instantly was Elliot's car. And at the end of my driveway, practically hanging onto her purse for dear life, was Lucinda. I didn't go to the door right away. Something told me this wasn't going to be a casual visit. This was the start of something else. This was something I wasn't sure I could handle. But when she rapped on the door, 3 quick knocks, I knew it wouldn't be simple. I hid behind the curtain, just watching her for a whole minute. She was fiddling with her purse strap, shifting her weight, like she wanted to walk around, but she stopped herself. I hadn't seen her in person since that last dinner. She seemed older, way more than just the 2 years. The lines around her mouth were deeper, and her hair, which was usually perfect, had a few loose strands tucked behind her ear, like she had run out the door. I wasn't sure what I expected to feel: anger, panic, or maybe pity, but honestly, I was just tired. She knocked again, softer this time. I opened the door a crack. She kind of jumped when she saw me, then tried to pull herself together. "I know you don't want to see me," she whispered, "but can we talk just for a second?" I didn't say anything at first, just leaned against the doorframe and crossed my arms, not trying to be mean, but because I didn't know what else to do with them. She looked past me as if hoping to see someone else inside. "You look good," she said finally. "Healthy." That annoyed me more than it should have, like she was trying to find a compliment to break the silence. I didn't let her in, but I stepped outside and shut the door. She didn't let on if she'd seen me. We just stood there for a beat, not saying anything. Finally, I asked, "What are you doing here, Mom?" She sort of fluttered her eyelids, and for a second I thought, here it comes, but then she didn't. Lucinda never broke down and started bawling, especially not with an audience. I didn't know what else to say. She just said, "You're not calling us back, you blocked your sister. Elliot said you de-changed your number." "Yeah, I did," I cut her off, "because I needed some space and none of you would give it to me." Her lips kind of tightened up like she wanted to argue, but she knew better. "We messed up," she said. "I'll own that. But cutting us off completely, this has gone on long enough." I almost laughed. "Long enough for who?" Instead, I just asked, "What is it you want?" That's when she paused. Her fingers squeezed her purse strap. "Can we go inside? This isn't really a front porch discussion." "No," I said, maybe a bit too fast. "Just tell me." She took a deep breath and glanced back at Elliot's car, like she was hoping for some help. But he just sat there behind the wheel, sunglasses on, acting like he wasn't watching us. Then she said something that made the hairs on my arms stand up. "It's your father." My gut did a little flip, and I hated that. I haven't said much about my dad yet, mostly because he was never the main event in our family. He wasn't mean like Lucinda, but he wasn't exactly in my corner either. He was always the type to fade into the background. At dinner, he was silent, always agreeing with her, never speaking up. He was like a ghost, always trailing after her, just agreeing with whatever she said. I honestly can't remember him ever taking my side, not even once. "What about him?" I asked, though I didn't really care. "He's sick," she told me. "He needs help." There it was, the we again. I didn't say anything right away. I just looked at her, really took her in. She had that same look she used to give me when she wanted me to do something I really didn't want to do. You know, like volunteering for some dumb school thing, or going on some family vacation I had no say in planning. It was that mix of "I know you don't want to, but you have to," and "if you don't, you'll regret it forever." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said slowly. "But why are you coming to me?" She blinked at me. "Because you're still family." I almost asked her if she actually believed that, if she'd ever treated me like family, but I didn't want to get dragged into one of her endless arguments. I gestured toward Elliot's car. "Is he coming up too?" She gave me a long look. "He's not ready. He has a lot of feelings about how things ended." I chuckled, a short, bitter sound. "Yeah, I bet he does." She took a step closer. "Can I come in?" "Just for a few minutes? I promise I'll explain everything. I'm not here to argue." I stared at her, really looked at her, and for a second there I almost said, "Okay." It hit me then, all those times she swore she wasn't trying to start anything, only to turn my words around, bring up old stuff, make me question myself. I still felt that empty, beaten-down feeling from that last dinner, a feeling that stuck with me for weeks. And I remembered the first time I ever told her no. Man, the look on her face, like I'd shattered something precious she hadn't even let me touch. So I took a deep breath and just said, "Not today." Her face dropped, not a big dramatic thing, but you could see it. She just nodded. "I'll leave my number," she said, digging around in her purse. "Please think about calling." I took the card. I didn't promise anything. She went back to the car without saying another word, got in, and they drove off. I stood on the porch for a bit after that, just staring at the card in my hand. Sleep? Forget about it. That whole thing replayed in my head all night. Her voice, the way she held onto her purse like it was the last thing she had left, and that line, "You're still part of this family." It was totally a guilt trip, I knew it, but man, it still stung. I ended up making tea at 2 a.m. and just sat on the couch in the quiet. No music, no phone, nothing. I needed some silence to think, but even that was too much. For the first time in ages, I really thought about how things got so messed up. I used to tell myself I was just the black sheep, the oddball. The farther I got away, the more I saw it wasn't just about being different. It was all about control. They wanted me to be a certain way, you know? And when I didn't play along, when I started saying no or doing my own thing, they didn't just get bummed. They turned ugly. Real subtle, though, always subtle. Sweet words with a sting. Fake praise in public, then a real tongue lashing behind closed doors. I used to think I was just too sensitive. But therapy showed me it was all their manipulation. So nope, I wasn't going back to that family. Not now, not ever, if I had a choice. But if they wanted to talk about screw-ups, well, I figured it was time they remembered their own. I've been holding on to this for a while now. When I was 27, I almost lost my whole business before it even really got going. I'd gotten a small business loan. Nothing crazy, but enough to pay the rent on my studio, buy some new equipment, and cover other startup stuff. I was working my butt off, barely making ends meet. That's when Cloud Clara called. Said she was proud of me, wanted to see my studio. I was shocked, to be honest. We weren't close, but I figured maybe she was trying to make amends. So I let her in, showed her everything, even took some professional headshots for her portfolio. A week later, my landlord started calling, freaking out. Turns out, my rent payments hadn't gone through, not twice. I looked at my bank account online and saw this huge charge, way more than I'd ever approved. Turns out Clara had snapped a pic of my banking stuff while I was on the phone. I figured it out from a bunch of frantic texts she sent after she realized I knew. She said she was desperate, needed a quick loan, and totally planned to pay me back. Something about a crisis and waiting for a big freelance payment to come through. When I talked to Lucinda about it, she didn't even act surprised. "She's your sister," she said, like it explained everything. It was a few hundred she was short with family, she claimed. Actually, it was over 1,000, and I never saw that money again. I was so shocked at the time, I just froze. I was also scared of making things worse between us. So I let it go, made amends with my landlord, and picked up extra work to make up for it. But now, after everything, I dug out my old laptop and started searching through my files. I'd forgotten how organized I used to be. Screenshots, emails, Clara's messages, even a copy of the bank transaction with the date and time, it was all still there. I opened a new document and started writing, not to get back at them. Not yet, anyway. I needed to get it all down. Every single thing, every time I looked the other way, every bit of their sneaky stuff. I wasn't going to let myself forget this anymore, so if they came crawling back, begging for forgiveness, they were gonna get a real wake-up call. They'd remember exactly why I walked away. And maybe, just maybe, they'd finally understand what it feels like to be humiliated. You see, I had a secret weapon. Elliot, Mr. Perfect himself. Turns out, his perfect life wasn't so perfect. I knew he'd taken out a second mortgage on that fancy house a couple of years back. And, get this, I knew someone who worked at his firm. This guy spilled the beans about Elliot cooking the books on a client's report. I'd kept it to myself, but now I was thinking about telling. It wasn't about getting even, it was about setting things straight. They'd treated me like I was the black sheep for years. I sat there, thinking it all over. Not just about payback, but about finally making them see my side of things. I didn't want to ruin their lives, that wasn't the point. This was about making them answer for their actions in ways they couldn't ignore or cover up. I wasn't the same person who sat at that last awful family dinner. I wasn't even the same person who used to cry in the car after Lucinda's helpful criticisms. I'd spent way too long walking on eggshells around their giant egos, terrified of saying the wrong thing and getting punished. But now, I was solid, and they were the ones who were shaky. The next day, I wrote an email. It was to Clara. "Okay, here's what I have. Listen," the subject line says it all. "You owe me way more than just an I'm sorry. Let's cut the crap. Here's the deal. The date and time you were in my studio, the money that vanished, all right? I've got screenshots of the bank stuff and proof of your own texts where you admitted everything. And here's the bottom line, you have until the end of the month to pay up what you took. Otherwise, I'm taking this to small claims court. No arguments, I haven't sent it yet though." I wanted to just let it sit, think about it. But writing it, that felt like actually being in control, finally. Like I had been in the passenger seat for ages. Honestly, I could have blown this up big time back then. I could have sixed the cops on her. But like always, I just let it go because I didn't want to rock the boat. I kept telling myself it would just make things worse. But seeing it now. Letting people walk all over you, that's what makes things worse, just in a sneaky way. The kind that gets in your head and makes you feel like you're overreacting, even when you're getting screwed over. Later that afternoon, I got a text from a number I didn't know. "I know you talked to Mom. She said you wouldn't even let her inside. Real mature, Rowan." It was Elliot, obviously. No, hi, no, how are you? Just jumping right in like I'd committed some major sin by setting a boundary. I didn't respond. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction. That's what he wanted. 2 hours later, another text pops up. I don't know what your problem is, but you seriously need to grow up. Dad's not doing well and mom's barely sleeping. You are not the one who needs sympathy, so please knock it off. The classic move, right? I was being the selfish one. I was playing the victim card. They still acted like I owed them something, like they deserved my respect, attention, maybe even an apology. But I didn't owe them anything. Not anymore. I just closed the messages without saying anything, but that second one, it kind of got to me. Dad's not doing well. I didn't really believe it, but then I recalled something. Something I'd basically forgotten about. 6 months before I left, when I'd cut off all contact, I went over to their house to grab some old boxes. I found my dad in the den, looking at a pile of envelopes. He tried to hide them quickly when I walked in. I didn't think much about it back then, but now I remembered the look on his face. He looked worn out, trapped. He told me it was just some boring tax stuff. I just dropped it. But now I was thinking. If Lucinda had a habit, it was using drama to distract from something else. It wouldn't be the first time she'd blown something out of proportion to change the subject. So I snooped a little. Just a touch. I still had access to a couple of the shared accounts from way back when we had a joint family savings plan for emergencies. The account hadn't been used in ages, or so I believed. Turns out there were new transactions. One of them was only 2 months ago, a big withdrawal labeled home renovation deposit. I just stared at the screen. My parents hadn't renovated anything, so who took that money? I started clicking around in the account history. It was linked to an old iPad I'd helped Clara set up ages ago when she'd forgotten her Apple password. That's when it hit me she hadn't just borrowed stuff all those years. She'd been raiding our emergency fund the whole time, and no one Lucinda Elliott, not even my dad, had ever said a peep. I sat back, the whole thing finally clicking into place. This wasn't just about a grand gone missing. It was a pattern, you know? Quiet stealing, quiet little excuses, everyone just going along with it. And now, they were all back, trying to make it look like I was the one who'd messed up and walked away. They had no clue what I'd found out. Once I'd put all the pieces together, I was done. I didn't need any more proof. I knew what I knew. I wasn't the bad guy here. My own family had been using and manipulating me for years, and I was so sick of pretending I owed them anything. I took a few more days to process it all, but I knew what I had to do. I wasn't playing their games anymore. I refused to be their puppet in their perfect little fake world, so I wrote Clara that email, laying it all out. The money she'd stolen, the lies, the whole manipulative thing, and I didn't stop there. I knew exactly how she'd blown the emergency fund, and I included all that too. I told her if she didn't pay me back by the end of the month, I'd sue. I wasn't even bothering to ask for an apology anymore. It was all about what I deserved, you know? Then I texted Lucinda and Elliot. I'm done, I wrote. I'm over the games and the bull. I'm not playing along with your family act anymore. You're not using me again. Don't contact me. That was the whole thing. No explanations, no replies, just a flat-out declaration. Nobody was going to come back into my life calling the shots, not after everything. I blocked them instantly, and I knew that was that any shot at fixing things was gone. I was positive they'd try their usual tricks, try to make me feel bad or play the helpless card. But I wasn't letting it fly anymore. A week later, Clara called from a new number, but I didn't answer. I saw the voicemail notification, but I just deleted it without even listening. I already knew it would be a bunch of apologies and the same old excuses, and I just couldn't deal with it. Then Lucinda sent me an email. She said she was sorry, for everything. For all the mix-ups, for drifting apart, for all the screw-ups on their part. She said they wanted to fix things and that maybe I just needed a little time to work through it all. Honestly, it almost made me chuckle. I read it once, then trash-canned it. I didn't owe them that anymore. I wasn't the one who needed to figure anything out. I'd been struggling with all the stuff they put me through for years, trying to understand it all and why I kept going back when they needed something. I couldn't keep giving them a pass for the way they treated me. I just couldn't keep bending over backwards to make them happy anymore. The toughest part. Accepting that they weren't ever going to change, no matter what. I'd clung to that idea for ages. I kept hoping that they'd eventually get it, that they'd understand how much their words and deeds had damaged me. But the reality was they were always the same. They just got better at hiding it, putting on more layers of sweetness and playing games. So I cut them off. Completely. No second thoughts. It wasn't an easy call, trust me. It wasn't something I jumped into. I spent a ton of time, years even, trying to fit myself into their little box, desperately trying to get them to like me. But eventually I got it. My value didn't depend on what they thought. My life was mine now, and I deserved to feel okay. It's been close to half a year since that last message. Nothing. No calls, no texts, no emails. And honestly, it's the calmest I've felt in ages. My business is going great. I'm finally in a spot where I can put all my energy into the stuff I really want to do without having to worry about what they'd say. I'm taking care of myself, inside and out. It hasn't always been easy, though. I've had moments where I've wondered if I screwed up, times when I questioned if I made the right call. But then I remember all the years of being ignored, criticized, and played. And then I know I did the right thing. I've started building a life for myself, one I can actually be proud of, without always feeling like I'm being watched and judged. As for them, I'm sure they found someone new to boss around. It was all a big act, a show put on for everyone else, this perfect family image. But honestly, that's their mess now, not mine. I figured out that ditching the people who were poisoning my life wasn't mean. It was all about taking care of myself. And you know what? I wouldn't change a thing.